It's going to be really difficult retiring in America. Everything is very tense in the States.
If you're tired of overpriced cities, political tension, and a declining quality of life, this might be the solution you've been looking for. Jeremy left the US to test out life in Colombia and ended up staying for nearly a decade. In this chat, we uncover why Bucaramanga is an underrated expat destination. We break down the shockingly low cost of living, the reality of safety concerns, what everyday life looks like for an expat, how Colombian culture creates a better quality of life, and the top things to do in the city. If you've ever considered leaving the US, this is a good one for you.
I have this awesome new guest here. I'm in this really cool new place, so let's go ahead and get to know him. What is your name and where are you from?
My name is Jeremy. I'm from the US and I've been here in Colombia 8 years. I've been living here in Santander in this city, Bucaramanga, for 6 years.
So super cool to meet someone that's basically Minnesotan. I mean, kind of. You don't identify
and we know some
like
of the same places.
Anymore.
You've been to the North Shore, I'm sure, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Bucaramanga. You currently live in the city in what zone? And do you think it's a safe zone?
Yeah, I live in a barrio called Nuevo Sotomayor. In Colombia, all the neighborhoods, all the cities are divided into stratos, 1 through 6. Estrato 1 is like the ghetto. You probably wouldn't want to go there, especially after dark. Estrato 6 is like a really nice exclusive community, what they call conjuntos. I live in Estrato 4, which I think is very safe, very nice place.
Awesome. And what is the average rent for maybe renting a 2-bedroom or whatever type of apartment in that zone? I can tell you what mine is. I'm in a different area, and in a high-rise building, I'm paying a little bit less than $500 per month. Can you give me what your price range is and maybe what type of lifestyle that is?
I pay 800,000 pesos for a 75 square meter apartment. I think most expats would probably want to live in a high-rise apartment. Many people like those kind of buildings where they have a gym right in the building. They have a vigilante, the doorman. So if someone comes to visit you, they have to check with them first.
Right.
For those kind of places, I think most expats would probably be looking at around 2 million.
You basically live as a local, basically, because you furnished the place, right? Like you're not talking about a furnished place.
Yes, yeah. I live in an unfurnished apartment. Well, it's furnished now because I furnished it.
If anyone is planning to come to Bucaramanga and would look for a type of, maybe a rental type of agency or a real estate company that could give them some options, could you give them any suggestions of different agencies or companies to look for?
Yes, a really good resource is fincayuraiz.com and metrocuadrado.com. And those are 2 rental agencies. You can look at that website and that can give you a little ballpark idea of what you can budget when you're traveling to Bucaramanga or San Gil or any other city in Colombia.
Awesome. So let's check over all this, make sure it's... Why did you end up leaving the United States?
I always wanted to live overseas. I thought that would be a pretty cool thing. When I was a kid, my cousin went as an exchange student over to Yugoslavia.
Oh, Yugoslavia.
And,
wow.
Yeah.
Which is not a country anymore, right?
No, this was in the 80s. I was a kid. But she's my older cousin. And I remember thinking, oh, that's really cool. You get to go to another country and meet other people, learn a language and all that kind of stuff. And then as an adult, I thought, well, I'm going to do that too. I'm going to go live in another country. So just between that natural desire and then, of course, most people know it's going to be really difficult. Anyone younger than a baby boomer is going to have a really hard time retiring in America. So I came to Colombia to investigate things. I was going to stay for a year just to investigate the pension system, what's the tax system like, what's the real estate like, what's the job employment situation like. So I had a contract for a year. I came down here. I worked for it was a private company, like an NGO, and they worked with the Colombian government. And he had this project called Colombia Bilingüe. And they were going to make Colombia bilingüe by 2020. You know, that was a...
Is Colombia bilingüe? So by the way, for people that don't know, bilingüe is bilingual, right? It's a pretty similar word.
Yeah.
So were they successful?
No, of course not. That's really ambitious. That's really ambitious. But anything like, you've got to be more ambitious. So what this program is they went to all over the world looking for native English speakers, going to South Africa, New Zealand, Canada, Ireland, US and Canada, of course, also some Brits. And they recruited native English speakers to teach at SENA. And what SENA is a national community college. It's basically a 2-year technical college. So they recruited all of us. We had a 2-week training in Bogota, and then everyone was assigned to a different city. They sent me to Santa Marta, which for me was a surprise. I didn't know anything about Colombia really before I came here. So I looked up Santa Marta on a map. Beautiful place. It's right there on the beach. And I lived there for 2 years. I lived in Santa Marta for 2017 and 2018.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I had to leave Santa Marta because we had a presidential election. In Colombia, when we have a new administration, things change. A lot of programs change, a lot of employees change, and they canceled the program in 2008. So I didn't have a job. By that time, I had already fallen in love with Colombia, didn't want to go back to the States. So I was trying to find a job. Santa Marta is a really big tourist town. Think of like Myrtle Beach or Traverse City, someplace like that. So if you don't have a job in the tourism industry, the hospitality industry, it's really difficult to find a job.
And you've been a teacher for a long time, too,
I've
right?
been a teacher for a long time.
When did you start doing the teaching job?
I started teaching in 2003.
Awesome. So before you started doing this work in Colombia, you had already worked almost 15 years in ESL.
Yeah, I worked in American public schools. Coming here to Colombia to teach English in a community college was really not a whole lot different than what I was doing in the US.
So you moved to Colombia with all this experience. You worked for 2 years. Ivan Duque is like, no mas. So you're like, what else? What do I do next, right?
Yeah, I didn't know what to do. I was really distraught. But somebody headhunted me there's a private bilingual school, very rich, exclusive private bilingual school here.
Salud.
Salud. And they found me on the internet, found my resume, and they interviewed me virtually and said they offered me the job. So I looked up Bucaramanga on the map because I'd heard of Bucaramanga. This is a major city. I think it's the 5th largest city in Colombia. It was the best thing that ever could happen to me. Costeño culture is a little bit like Southern culture in the US. Incomplete with all the same stereotypes. Everything that they say about Southerners in the US, the stereotype, we know it's not true.
And all the good things too, like for example, Southern food in the US is some of the best. Same thing in the Caribbean, northern coast of Colombia.
Exactly.
So it has some similarities that are actually positive.
And they're very friendly too.
Yeah, exactly.
I met a Costeño one day and we're just over there having drinks, and by the end of the conversation, he invited me to his daughter's wedding the very next. Here in the interior, they're not so friendly, but they're still very nice. This area, Santander and Bucaramanga, reminds me a lot of where I'm from. Part of your value is based on how much you can get done in a day. We're like that farming culture, even though we don't live in farms all the time. And Bucaramanga is very similar. People wake up in the morning to get stuff done and they go to bed early. This city, Bucaramanga, is not a place for the young digital nomad who wants to go out and club and find hot Tinder dates every night. Bucaramanga is a place for people who want to live a good life, good quality life. If you're an older person with kids, come to Bucaramanga. This is a place to come and just have a good, chill, quality life.
So this city, part of the pull factors of this city was the fact that it has a family atmosphere, and you like that, right?
It does have a family atmosphere. Yeah, Colombia in general, they do have a lot more family values, I think, than America.
Definitely.
We have paternity leave here, for example. We have Head Start, subsidized Head Start. When a woman goes to the hospital to have a baby in the States, you have a baby, the baby goes over to the little incubator, the little baby room over there. Here, unless the baby is a preemie, has some problems, they need to be in the ICU. Here in Colombia, when a woman gives birth, unless the baby has specific problems and they need to be in the ICU, the baby spends the first night of life in bed with mom, which seems like a no-brainer. Like, oh yeah, but they don't do that in America. Here, that's standard. Colombia, in general, is much more family-oriented, I think, than the US.
So was that one of the major factors about the culture that you loved so much and that pulled you in? In the US, I know you and I probably agree, it's a much more independent, much more like what's mine is mine, yours is yours, and kind of that family connection, that the connection just in society in general as well is like more like, no, I am independent, I'm my own person. Whereas here they're a bit more connected. Is that something that you really liked about Colombia?
Oh, definitely. For example, if you're in a park like this and you see some child that's not yours, going up to pet a stray dog, you would be expected, and maybe mom's on the phone, she's texting, so she doesn't notice that, little Nino's over there petting a stray dog. It's acceptable to go over there and grab the child by the hand and say, no, don't touch that dog, bring him over to mom and say, oh, hi, senora, and it's a conversation starter. You would never do that in America.
That's people would be like, what are you doing touching my child?
No,
right?
don't touch my child. Don't tell me how to raise my child. Don't do this.
Okay.
No, if you have a job, if you want to just have a good quality of life, if you want to put your kids in a good school, this is a place to be.
People here in the United States aren't super friendly. I want a friendlier place. Was that something that also caused you to look for another place?
When I would go back to the States, everything is very tense. Everything is very tense in the States. For example, an anecdote, I was in Walmart a couple of years ago when I was visiting the States, and they had low-fat marshmallows. And I thought, that's weird, low-fat. And I just turned to the person next to me and I thought, this is weird. Who wants low-fat marshmallows? Because marshmallows are supposed to be terrible for you. That's the whole point. And she immediately went off, wow, this is Biden's America. And then back off.
These marshmallows are terrible because of Biden.
Exactly. The marshmallows are terrible because of Biden. And another thing, I was making a comment about bringing a cart back, and someone was on the opposite stream. Well, it's those damn MAGA people. They're selfish. They don't bring carts back.
And nowadays, more than ever, people are just so incredibly extremist on both sides, right?
Yeah, and that was not a push factor in the beginning, but when I was having my doubts and considering, do I want to live in Colombia? Do I want to go back to the States? And I would go visit and I would see conversations like that, and I would see how stressful everybody was. That made me just, when can I get back on the plane and go back home to Colombia? Because I don't like it here. It was just very tense. People are nervous. Colombia, people think all politicians kind of have about as much respect as like a used car salesman or a divorce lawyer. And no matter what side you're on, you're either conservative or liberal. So nobody has respect for politicians. And it's just assumed that they're all crooked, they're all corrupt. So who cares? Why should I argue about my guy? Because they're all corrupt.
Well, the political fights and the political debates are pretty minimal here. I've noticed that too. I mean, I've obviously seen people that want to talk about it, and I've met people, but it's pretty minimal compared to the U.S., where it seems like the majority want to.
Yeah, it's very minimal, and pretty much everyone has the same political opinion. They're all corrupt.
Right.
End of story.
So that would be maybe another push, like a later push factor, which turned into your pull factor here, where you're like, well, people don't care that much about politics. That's such a turn off to constantly hear people or talk to people that want to argue about it.
This is more like just gossip. Like you've probably heard about, President Petro. He's got his girlfriend on the side that's actually a tranny.
I actually haven't heard that.
I don't know what's true and what's not true, but politicians are just another celebrity to gossip about.
Have you had any issues with safety? Yeah. No.
The most common crime in all of Colombia, including Bucaramanga, is just regular old-fashioned theft. Yeah. You have two guys on a motorcycle, and they'll just drive past, and one person will grab the bag.
Right.
So easy ways to avoid that. When you're walking down the street, walk close to the building instead of close to the street. Have your mochila, have your bag like this instead of on just one shoulder.
Yeah.
If you are walking down the street and you have to text a friend, don't walk and text at the same time. Maybe duck into a doorway or
hold on to it really heavy.
Hold on.
When I first went to Vietnam, to Saigon, biggest city I've ever lived in. I lived in Saigon for 2 years. 16 million people there.
Ooh,
and I was in the tourist zone. I went to go text my friend to see, because I was staying with him. I didn't know where he lived. Went to text my friend, and I was luckily holding on to my phone really tightly. It was 2 a.m. And yeah, a gang, exact same thing. A motorbike, mafia or whatever, criminal, came by to try and grab it as he was driving past, and I was holding on to it tight, luckily.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just one of those things where, petty crime, and all of Colombia is pretty common, right? But
yeah.
Has that happened to you here in Bucaramanga?
No. In the U.S., we have school shootings. We have shootings at Walmart, at country music concerts. That's unheard of here.
At presidential speeches.
At presidential speeches, yeah. Those kind of things, they just don't. it doesn't even cross people's minds. It never happens.
Yeah.
And when you do have violent crimes like murders, it's almost always focused.
So yeah, interesting. And you did also mention that other parts of Colombia have had some crime problems for you, whereas Bucaramanga has not.
Yeah, I lived in Santa Marta for a couple of years, and yeah, the one time I was a victim of crime there, I looked up and there was a guy with a knife, and he says, "Yeah, give me this and this and this, and what are you going to do?" In retrospect, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I should have known better. And that's actually a common attitude in Colombia, because petty crime, like I'm just describing, is pretty common. And a lot of people will say, "Yeah, I lost my phone, but it was because I was doing this." People aren't really bitter about crime. They're not like, "Oh, this terrible Colombia. Why do I live in this country? I want to leave to the U.S. where people don't get robbed."
I mean, petty crime happens in safe places. It happens in dangerous places. So it's just smart to always do the right thing and prevent what could happen, right? So being that Bucaramanga is in what I think many people consider to be the Goldilocks zone, which is between like 1,000 and 2,000 meters, which is really good weather year round. This is right below it. So it's kind of a little bit hotter for me, comparing it to Medellin and other places at 1,500 meters, or, going up to Pereira was 1,300 meters. What do you think of the weather? Is it comfortable for you? And was that a factor for moving here as well?
Here in Bucaramanga, the temperature is always between maybe 70 and 80 degrees. The vast majority of every day here in Colombia, here in Bucaramanga, is around in the mid 70s, 74, 76 degrees.
But for someone that's not super into higher humidity, I think maybe it's a bit difficult for them because the humidity is like around 75%, I think I've seen.
Yeah, it is a little bit more humid, yeah.
So I guess that kind of makes it feel a little bit hotter than the 80 you mentioned, but it's still not like anything compared to Santa Marta.
No.
I'm going to Cartagena next week, so I've heard I've heard from many friends, it's the hottest city they've ever been to. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out next week. So yeah.
We don't have a weather section on our news. Why? Because the weather doesn't change everywhere you go. Because we're in the tropics, Bucaramanga, we're at 7 degrees latitude. The weather is pretty much the same every day, all year round. So whatever kind of weather that you like, you can choose that kind of city to go for. You like the hot, humid type weather, go to Cartagena, go to Cali. You like chilly weather, move to Tunja, move to Pasto, where you have weather in the 60s.
Bogota as well. So there's little pockets of where rain falls more and less, and like the country is so small, you think it wouldn't matter. It's changing from one place to another, but it actually does. Microclimates exist, so it's something you want to look into if thinking that Bucaramanga or wherever is the right place for you. I'd like to say thank you so much for watching my videos, and if you want to show support for my channel, please hit that like and subscribe like always. And if you want to go above and beyond, you can buy me a coffee, you can support me on Patreon, and you can also join my channel as a member. That goes to me and really helps me provide all the things that I need in order to make these high quality videos for you guys here in Latin America. Let's get back to the video. So speaking of good weather, of course, when I'm thinking of doing fun things like leaving the city for a trip, a day trip or whatever, I want to have dry weather, and Bucaramanga has drier weather than the other cities I've lived in. What type of things do you do for fun? And is the weather good for that in general? Is that why Bucaramanga is an awesome place to travel around as well?
Yeah, I think Bucaramanga and Santander is a great place to travel. One of the more common things that Colombians do, Burmangues, we like to do, we have a verb called pueblear. Santander is full of small little pueblos. Barichara is probably the most famous. A lot of people go to Barichara. Barichara is what the movie Encanto was based on. So if you've seen Encanto, the Walt Disney movie, everybody here in Colombia loves that movie. So Barichara is known in Colombia as the prettiest little village. Another big attraction we have here is El Cañón de Chicamocha.
But that's going to be probably the number one thing that people know of after Barichara, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think those are probably the two biggest attractions here in Santander. And you're right, it is the second deepest canyon in the world, right after the Grand Canyon in Arizona. So if you come to Santander, you should really go to see Barichara and also Chicamocha. I like Chicamocha better, but that's just me. That was my purpose of my channel, actually, is to try to show people more about Santander. Because if you research on the internet about Colombia, most of what you find is Medellin.
What is the name of your channel?
Oh, my name of my channel is called The Pretty City Bucaramanga.
And why is it called that?
Because Bucaramanga has two nicknames. We call one nickname is La Ciudad Bonita, which is the pretty city, and they also call us La Ciudad de los Parques, the city of park.
We are currently in one of the many parks that the city is famous for having nice parks. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell, show me your love by dropping a donation in the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hasta la próxima.